I'm so happy to speak with Ganyah Goldstein, a wildlife biologist and traveler. Ganyah's story shows how, despite what others think of you, you should still strive to fulfill your dream, and that there are so many different ways to get to your dream destination. She was born in Jerusalem, grew up in California, and now she's in England and travels all around the world. Ganya is here to share with us how she found inner strength when others tried to put her down and how she's thriving when fulfilling her dream. So, welcome, Ganya. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm so happy you found some time to join me on my podcast, and you have a pretty strong online presence, and your life looks absolutely like a dream. I'm so curious to learn more about what hurdles you had to jump over to get where you are today.
Hi, Marta. Thank you so much for having me on the podcast. I'm quite honored to have a platform to be able to speak about my journey, and thank you for the kind words about my online presence and everything. And I'm really excited to kind of jump in today and talk about the journey in depth because it's had challenges and, like you said, hurdles. So we'll definitely get into that. So thank you for having me.
Awesome. Well, you are a wildlife biologist and a traveler, and working worldwide conducting research and spreading love for animals. I would like to know where that love for nature come from.
Yeah, that's a great question. And when I think about it, and I think about it more and more these days, I do think people are born with certain passions and fires already in their soul. And for me, I think I was born with this fire in my soul. However, growing up, there was moments that really sparked that and made me remember and reconnect to that. And I think just because I was also growing up in the South by the ocean and the mountains, and I was raised as a very free child, I think I was able to connect to nature on a deep level. And one of my earliest memories is actually living next to a dolphin reef. And I had my third birthday there. So it was kind of those core memories as a kid that connects you. And I had that growing up. And later down the line, I ended up moving to the city here in London. And maybe parts of that were forgotten. And documentaries from, David Attenborough and also Steve Irwin back in the day, they would take you around the world and show you some of the most beautiful places. And I think realizing how beautiful this earth was, I actually couldn't believe my eyes. And that's where I just had moments where I knew that was kind of where I was meant to be. And I had a real deep understanding that I love the rainforest and the jungle specifically. And that understanding came at about 14 years old.
So, what was your dream at 14?
Yeah, thinking about dreams and how they progressed, I always thought my dreams started at 14, but full transparency, as a kid, I grew up singing, acting, and dancing, and I thought I would be an actress. Again, so interesting how I didn't think about nature or animals. I'm also a first generation graduate, so I never had any academic, kind of push towards being anything. So I did always feel like I could be anything I wanted to be, which is really great. And at 14, I realized I wanted to be part of wildlife conservation. And so that was my dream rather than being a wildlife vet or wildlife researcher. I just knew I wanted to be a wildlife conservationist. And I didn't know how I would get there. The whole journey is how I got there. But my dream is always to be a conservationist. Yeah.
So, you said your dream at the very beginning was to become an actress. So, have you ever took any steps to fulfill that dream?
I don't think I will be doing actress for a movie or anything. I did theater and stuff when I was younger. That being said, I was talking to someone recently, and we all have these little things that we had as a kid. And I was like, hey, right now I'm in my 20s. Why don't I go back to that part of myself? And maybe it'll even help with my online presence, my science communication. And so I think I'll do acting and more wildlife presenting in that respect rather than going to the movies or anything like that. So I think I can have a combination. So yeah, maybe I'll sign up for acting classes 2025.
Okay, but when you were a kid, when you were 14, you didn't do anything towards that.
So I did when that I wanted to be an actress as a kid under the age of 14 for about 7 years. I was in acting, singing, and dancing school. So I actually pursued becoming an actress for 7 years.
Okay. Wow, that's really cool. And I think now with what you're trying to do is going to be super helpful.
Yeah, it's honestly, I forgot about it. It was only that this past year. I was like, oh, yeah, that's actually the first thing I ever wanted to be. So I think dreams can change, but they can maybe work together. There's a reason we have like multiple ones.
Yeah. So when you decided that you wanted to work with wildlife, how did that journey look like for you?
Wow, the journey I would say was so I would say the journey was a bit like up and down and around and just figuring it out. I would say I always had a clear idea of where it would be, and how that kind of came into fruition throughout my journey was different. So, like I said, I was a first generation graduate, which just meant like people around me didn't have any advice to really give me. So I would go to school and, ask what was the best career steps to take to work with animals in general. And I was told I should become a vet if I want to work with animals. So I did a bit of digging and I found out you could become a vet, but with wildlife. So I decided then that I would do everything I could to become a wildlife vet. It was the only path I knew about. And I went on a very discovering route. I wanted to discover all the different ways people could get involved in conservation, but I was still focused on becoming a vet. So that was throughout all my like science exams from about 16 to 18. That was 2 years. Yeah. So actually 14 to 18, 4 years. I was on my way to becoming a vet. And then I had like these big exams and I got all the offers, all the interviews, I did all these things and I didn't get through the final offer to veterinary medicine. And that's when I decided to take a gap year. Like we can get more into different aspects. I took a gap year and I decided to reapply still and do different parts of wildlife. So get involved with different aspects of wildlife conservation, like I'd always dreamed of, and actually go to places I always dreamed of. So I went and volunteered in Costa Rica at a wildlife rescue center. I did a veterinary wildlife training program in South Africa. And then I went and traveled as well freely. And through that, I had this big understanding that there's really not one route. The people that are in wildlife rescue had a certain background, but they all had different ones too. The vets and the wildlife professionals in South Africa also had different backgrounds. So I knew there was always a way for me to get there. And when I didn't get in again to veterinary medicine, I knew there was a reason why. And I ended up finding my degree in wild animal biology. And I took that for 4 years. And that was my integrated master's. And it almost felt like a fast forward. I was able to skip like 5 years of studying things that might not have been relevant to what I actually wanted to do. And I was able just to start studying. So I did that for 4 years. And then I've been working since as a wildlife biologist.
So, why did you decide to take that a gap year?
Mm. Yeah, that gap year really came about from one of my dreams, not in a career perspective, was to go somewhere more wild, to go somewhere in Africa, to go somewhere in the world where there's incredible biodiversity and rainforest and the things I had only dreamt about. So part of my dream was actually witnessing these natural beauties that I was so scared I would never be able to see because of the threats. At 14, I was like, by the time I'm old enough, will there be the Great Barrier Reef? I really had this time pressure. So when I was 19, I wanted to see for myself what was happening out in the world and discover firsthand. So that's why I took a gap year.
And did your parents support you in that decision? I mean, you said that they didn't have like the higher education. So how did they go about
Yeah.
it?
So they're not like academics, but they're travelers, both of them. So they very much supported me traveling by myself as an 18, 19-year-old. That being said, one of the major hurdles in that was still convincing them that I was safe. I was going to relatively safe countries, but I was always going to remote places. So that took a bit of work and trust, but they were very supportive. And every time they'd see me grow and follow my heart and my passion, they would support me more and more. And so I'm very lucky to have always had that foundation, specifically also my mother, which definitely helped me go off into the world alone at quite a young age.
And did you feel the same support when you are actually going for academics?
Yeah, I think I did a lot of things on my own. I'm the first, like the eldest, and I don't know, I was very focused, and yeah, they were always very proud. But like my parents, I feel like they measured how proud they were based off of if I was happy. Like I think they were. I'll be honest. Like I actually yesterday found some old letters and some old certificates, and one of them was from my mom, basically saying that she's so proud of me. And I think it's quite special to see someone truly following their heart and their mission without being pressured into it. And I think they were there just to be like, whatever you choose, like we'll support you. And that's what I kind of felt throughout it all.
That's awesome. And how did you find that inner focus that, you had your goal, but often people get distracted? How did you keep that, you know,
Yeah.
the bullseye?
Yeah. You're right. That is like a bullseye, like you're targeted. I was I try to think back. I'm like, what was this kid doing? Like I was young, I literally never even decorated my room. I just had posters plastered everywhere, like revision posters on all my walls. Like I was truly obsessed with getting these grades and further progressing in my goals. I think what kept me going was this visualization of me actually where I wanted to be, which was in a rainforest or in a jungle and with wildlife, like big animals. I could see it. And being able to actually visualize and see it and know that was like actually going to happen to me, made the studying, made the exams, made the stress, made all of that less difficult because I knew it was for a reason. I think it can be hard for people to study and focus when they don't know why they're doing that. Like, why would I need to sit here and do 20 math past papers? Like for me, it was, I'm doing that because I need this grade so I can then do that and then I can go there. So having that goal and that visualization and like believing that is for you really can help you every day. And also, I think I was quite lucky to be able to discover what a productive morning routine is. Like, and I think that can help a lot.
So it's interesting because the notion of visualization and manifestation, it really came to life in a past few years. And how did you discover it yourself? Did it come naturally, or did someone teach you?
Um, yeah, I would say it came naturally. I just saw it for myself. It's only the past few years that I realized there's actually a technique like called visualization. I would just, yeah, take myself to that place and dream about it. I'm a daydreamer. I think Pisces are typically daydreamers. So I think just naturally my characteristic, I could like dream and visualize something, but it's a really powerful tool. And now I'm able to kind of curate it and like share that with people I do coaching with or the webinars. Because when you can see something, you feel a bit closer to it. So it is a powerful tool, and it's one that I think can be used to manifest or draw in your desires and dreams, especially if it's for a good purpose.
And for someone who doesn't know visualization, or it doesn't really come naturally to them, what advice would you give them?
Yeah, that's a really great question. I would say actually having a guided visualization can be very helpful if it's your first time. And it's something I'm kind of working on creating, but it's where you create a safe space for yourself, whether that's lighting candles, a nice environment, sounds of nature, or wherever you are, basically starting with a safe environment for yourself to connect to yourself deeper, no distractions. And typically you close your eyes and start with some guided breath work and really calming yourself and letting your active thoughts kind of fade away. And then that's when the guidedness would be like I would be, or someone would be prompting you to start putting together a picture of a future dream for yourself, whether that's what you're doing, how you're feeling, what you can see, what you can feel. Are you at peace? Are you in like a high stress environment, being like kick ass, like all these things? It's unique. So I want people to really create that dream through unique visualizations rather than like, okay, I'm going to create it for you and this is what it looks like. So it's a unique idea, and it can also be developed over time. And I also like to add in a layer of non-attachment. So yes, this might be what you see for yourself. For example, when I was younger, maybe I'd be a wildlife vet, but that non-attachment of knowing that everything is also going to be how it's meant to be. So you're doing that visualization to become the best version of yourself. But if something doesn't work out, it's also okay. Like everything you did up until that point was meant for you. And it's at that point of where you move forward and where the dream takes you next. So that's kind of how I would phrase it now, if it in short is.
Nice. Awesome. Thanks. So you had very, very strong purpose, and your dream was big, and you really believed in it and believed in yourself. And I can hear that you're talking about like the non-attachment part of the visualization. However, I think the tall or the exam that you failed, that the first one, it still did take a toll on you, or not at all, thanks to the visualization.
Yeah, it definitely did, and it can so happen. So one thing I will say, and if I could, it sounds really positive, being goal driven, being hardworking, high achieving, but at the end of the day, I wish I could have appreciated each step a bit more and each achievement a bit more and not been so hard on myself, because I didn't fail. Actually, I got a good grade. I got a B in, math and biology, and at a quite high level. And a B is great. You can get into lots of amazing university, pretty much most science courses. It's a great grade. And for somehow I felt like I failed. And I think that's the crazy part. It was more the idea failed. And that was the hard part, like putting so much hard work into something and not feeling like you got that feeling you really wanted. So had I come to terms with it before, okay, what if I don't think I visualized enough what happens if this doesn't happen? I think it was such a shock. So advice like for myself or someone else would be, have big dreams and have big goals, but if something doesn't work out, like be prepared to go a slightly different path, and that's also okay. Because I wasn't prepared, it hit hard. Yeah,
So what did you do to deal with that hit?
that's such a good question. So thank you for asking that. I I did something really, I don't even know how I did this and why I did this, but basically I came home. Firstly, I saw my ex at the time. He gave me positive affirmations. Fine. He did great in his exams. I left him. I went home, and I ended up going on YouTube and watching these like super intense motivational videos with like millions of views. And they were just like with, that typical like go get it. Like it was just a very strong, powerful video. And I watched so many of them. And the same thing I learned was that failure, or that word failure, actually can lead people to being more successful. And everyone that is successful has dealt with some level of failure. And it's always how they dealt with it that made them who they were. And in that moment, I got a new visualization, like, oh my gosh, when I'm going to create my dream, I'm actually going to be able to talk about this failure, and it's not going to all been perfect. So it's just so funny we're talking about now, because I realized in that moment that this was just a part of the story. And I think when you realize that each step is a part of the story, and it might feel bad, it's also not. And I got through it that day. And yeah, because I was very, go get it. I just created a new idea of the new year, what ahead and what I would do. But stuff like that is really, really helpful.
Nice. So the gap year you took, um, what was the most inspiring thing from it?
I think it's a good question. What was the most inspiring part? I think it was bridging that connection between what I had studied about animals and wildlife and being able to actively apply it to better help animals. For example, through my academic pathway, I did extra online courses, and I did one all about a concept called One Health, which is that the environment, human health, and animal health is interconnected. And when I was working at a wildlife rescue center, I was still training and learning. I was young, I was 18. But because I had already studied something, I saw where things could be implemented and actually improved. And I spoke to the vet about it, and she said that I could help. And I wanted to create posters as reminders of people to do certain things in the center to protect the animals and protect themselves. And I would stay up really late and found all these extra wildlife books, and I would read them. And I think that was super inspiring to know that only at 18 years old, with such a strong passion, I don't have a degree yet or anything, you can still make a difference. And that's what I think gave me also some confidence in myself, that you can apply knowledge out there. And that's a really amazing feeling.
So why did you decide to retake the exam?
Because I'm crazy. Literally, I don't know. I just thought about it, and I was like, I know the content. I know it. I found exams really, really stressful. And I also think possibly I could have been given extra time or have been allowed to use a laptop for other like reasons that I thought I wasn't checked on. So I thought I know the content. It was the exam. And I went into my university. I went into my college, and one of my chemistry teachers said, like, don't do that. Everyone I spoke to there told me not to do it. And I kind of didn't like that. I remember the career advisor saying, give up, like basically telling me to give up. And I really hated that I was being told to give up when I came in so strong. I went into the school the next day being like, all right, what's the plan of action? Like, what is it? Help me. And they were like, yeah, just take a clearance, like do something different. And I just found that really negative. And I didn't want to give up at that point. I was like, let me try one more time. So that's kind of why I went for it. Yeah.
So why did people tell you to give up if the B wasn't really a bad grade and you did excel in your classes?
I really don't know. I definitely like hold some resentment for certain people that told me certain things. I mean, one instance really stood out, and I don't know if anyone else will be able to relate, but I remember the day very well. I decided I was going to 100% go to become a vet. And I went up to my biology teacher, thinking, great, she's going to be so excited. One of her students wants to do veterinary medicine. And she literally looked at me in the eyes and said, you're never going to be able to do it. It's impossible. I know people that got 3 A stars and they didn't get into university. And yeah, I'll never forget that. Like, there's no need to tell someone that they can't do something when they're ready to do it. And at the end of the day, I got through all my interviews, I got my offers. They wanted me as a person. And the way the exams are also like created, it's can be really challenging. And I knew I was, per se good enough to go there. But yeah, it's super, super competitive. And I appreciate that. It's like almost, I think, harder than medicine itself. So that's fine. But yeah, having teachers not wanting to believe in you, I now through personal development know it comes from a projection from their past self. Who knows? She might have wanted to become a vet one day, and now she's a biology teacher, so she's taking it out on the students. So these things can happen in life, and just to remember that someone gives you advice or guidance that you don't resonate with and it doesn't serve you, like you can just basically send it right back to them and not take it on board. Because imagine someone that just being like, okay, I can't do it. I'm not going to do it anymore.
Do you think that you took strength out of those words?
Yeah, I think so. I was just obviously I was sure of my personality. I was sure of my care. I was sure that I was hardworking. So like all those things, I can do it. And if they don't want to believe in me, fine. I cannot wait to tell them. And I remember when I did get my offers into veterinary medicine, the teacher had left, but a girl I knew was being tutored by her. So I said, can you please let Miss know that Ganya has got an offer into veterinary medicine? So she did find out that I did get an offer. And yeah, it was pretty rewarding.
Good for you.
Literally, so funny. I just school, but I had some good teachers. Some teachers really also changed the trajectory of my life in a good way. And I think that's amazing.
Yeah. So what did you do after your second exam, and how that exam go for you?
I'll be so honest. I feel like I've fully blurred it out of my memory. I don't talk about it much. I feel like most people don't know. I just created a blur around it. Um, all I remember is being in my gap year, the end of my gap year. I was alone in Australia, the other side of the world from my family and friends, opening the results and seeing I also didn't make it again. And at that point, that was like pure devastation and pure relief. The amount of stress I went through, I realized I didn't need that level of stress to have a good life and and fulfill my purpose. It wasn't for me. Of course, there's other people doing veterinary medicine and they're great and they're not super stressed and they're just like, they've just got something that's for that career and I fully respect them. But for me, I have this really deep passion. I have this voice I want to share. And maybe veterinary wasn't that path for me. And I really had to remind myself while I was like crying and everything that it was not my goal to be a vet at a clinic. It was to be a part of wildlife conservation. And so, my mother helped me over the phone in the middle of the night for her finding courses. And yeah, it was kind of a blessing to find my degree that I ended up doing. But yeah, the exams I do not remember. I just remember that day very well.
Okay. So do you think you were able to shift your dream, your path, because of the purpose? Because the purpose basically stayed the same, right?
Hmm. Yeah, exactly. The purpose did stay the same. Yeah. The purpose stayed the same. And I find of something really interesting is that sometimes you can know what your purpose is, maybe, but you don't know how you're going to get there. Like, or you can know where you want to go and not really sure what you're like, you might not have all the pieces to the puzzle. So
Mhm.
I think that's what kind of happened for me. But I did have a lot of trust in myself and my future that things would work out. Um, and even with that, even with things working out, even with like the past few years have been incredible and I can't even believe where I'm at, I still have challenges daily, and it's just a part of life as well.
Tell me, please, about your journey now that you changed your degree. You're in completely different path. So, how did that go for you, and where did it take you?
So, really interestingly enough, in the UK, we have A-level exams. It's when you're 18, you take 3 or 4 subjects. I did math, biology, and chemistry, but I also did an extra qualification. And it was something called an extended project qualification, where you did a project, which was actually a research project of your choice. And looking back, that was really the link between that part of my academic journey and my university academic journey, because I loved creating my own research project. I didn't know, again, I had no idea people were researchers. I just didn't know that was a thing. So I was just doing this project thinking, okay, this is what I'm doing now. And I remember we were able to choose our own topics, and I did it on how humans impact the rates of cancer in wildlife and domestic animals. Don't ask me how I came up with it. I just did. And it was so fascinating because I actually was looking at different human impacts. And one of them was on, I found, was how like household chemicals that are sprayed on surfaces can affect cats because they're constantly licking surfaces, licking their paws. And that year that I was doing that paper, the Royal Veterinary College, which then became, that was my university I went to, had recently published a paper on how they found this chemical in brain tumors in cats, which is horrific. But it was so crazy. It was the first time I realized, oh my God, there's people discovering things now that I'm interested in now. So actually looking back, I think I always had such a passion for wildlife research. And then I ended up going to that university, and I love being a researcher. It's something that I'm super passionate about now, and I didn't even know I was back then.
So you're a wildlife researcher now. You've conducted studies in Borneo,
Mm-hmm.
Uganda.
Yeah.
Am I missing anything?
I also did one
Morocco?
with Morocco and elephants, captive elephants.
Which one was the most life changing for you?
Mm, probably Borneo.
Oh,
Yeah.
why?
Borneo is the best because, like I said at the beginning, I really dreamt of wild places. And when I was 14 and I was watching different David Attenborough documentaries and seeing things, I'll never forget seeing this like overview shot of this like vast rainforest and being like, where is that on earth? Where do we have that much jungle and dense, unstopped forest? And I did some research into the program and everything, and I found out it was this huge island called Borneo. And since then, I was obsessed with Borneo. I did a project in my second year all about Borneo, um, about orangutans. I did it on butterflies, the ecosystem. And so I was already fascinated by Borneo and orangutans and this island. And I knew I wanted to be a part of like protecting it. So when the kind of stars aligned and I went to not only Borneo, which was a dream, but also the most remote place I've ever been in my life, that was two dreams coming true. And then I was able to also be a scientist there, was, yeah, a pretty life-changing feeling.
So you spent quite a bit of time just observing animals. Do you have any lessons that you learned from those creatures that you've observed?
Yeah, I definitely took a lot of lessons, and I changed actually as a person because of spending so much time. Typically, I would say I wasn't always super patient, and I learned a lot of patience with animals. You know, the way they take time sometimes with everything they do, especially primates. So the primates I've studied, and the type of days they have, and yeah, kind of how chill they can be as well. I think you realize how not serious life is, and how when you have the basic requirements, you can also be content with your life. You know, you've got food, you've got family, you've got somewhere safe to sleep, and then everything else is extra. You know, the groups that I observed in Morocco, the macaques that were happy, they had good social groups and bonds. And you see that the same with humans, you know, when we're happy and we're able to socialize and connect with people, it means we're in a safe place. But then at the same time, if you have threats and stresses, they're not able to interact with people, miscommunication, arguments, aggression. And I see again the same with humans, you know, when people are missing those fundamental basics in life, um, it can cause people to turn against each other. And so I do think we're really similar. And I got to really be able to see all the different mother and offspring relationships, which I'm fascinated by, and it's super beautiful. The animal kingdom is so diverse, and I feel like I've just seen a tiny, tiny fraction of it. Even though I might be more experienced than someone else, the amount out there is incredible. But yeah, that's some of my takeaways. Thank you for asking that.
So, what's your dream now? Like, what's another research that you would like to conduct?
Oh, it's a good question. I'm currently okay, something so interesting, which I'm blessed to experience, but when you have certain dreams and you feel like they're starting to become fulfilled, you get to a point where you're like, okay, what's the next dream? And I'm actually currently at that. Um, I'm really trying to figure that out, to be honest. Like, I'll be super honest. I have some ideas. An animal I really want to go back to working with, I've not actually worked with, sorry, but working with is giraffes. I think they're pretty like misunderstood slash not understood at all because of, I don't know, quite different animal they are. Um, so I'd love to work with giraffes. You know, elephants, of course, there's a lot of problems happening with elephants. I also would love to go back to that first idea I had about the cancer rates affecting from human impacts, the more like chemical disease side of things. This is the thing. I've got so many different ideas. Definitely not sure right now how they will execute, but I do have a clear vision that I'm prepared to help people follow their dream, or at least to at this point. So this year I'll be hosting more wildlife group trips where we're going to be focusing on wildlife conservation. I'll have one in South Africa, potentially in Peru, and potentially somewhere else. And that is a new dream of mine for this year, is just being able to share that with more people. And I think that can also be a part of changing the world if more people care. So I have a mix between my personal and like what I want to give. So yeah.
So, do you feel like you are overwhelmed and a little bit stuck with so many, available doors and ideas?
I think up until this point, I've been having like a flow. It's been like a lot of flow. Like, I had my job in Morocco secured before I graduated. I had networked and created this like offer in Borneo while I was still in Morocco. So like everything overlapped. Like this month, it feels like the first time I've just had space. Like I've come back from my group trips in South America and Central America, and I just feel like I have so much space and I have to make some decisions and new goals. It definitely can feel overwhelming, and I can feel like, am I being productive? Am I not being productive? Um, you know, Other different questions in your mind. But at the same time, I also feel like I've had to come to terms with like, it's going to work out. I need to be clear on a few more things. But yes, it's an interesting crossroad at the moment while we're talking, actually.
So, do you have any strategies how to deal with that?
Um, I have some, yes. I've created like for myself and even for when I do coaching is having short-term goals, mid-term goals, and long-term goals. So that could be, what do you want to achieve by next month? What do you want to achieve in 6 months? And what do you want to achieve in 1 year? Because sometimes I think I need to be doing the thing I want to be having achieved in a year. Like, let's say I want to create something. It's actually going to take a few months. But if I didn't work on it today, does that mean I'm not achieving my goal? Like, no, it puts it into perspective that it's going to be over time. It's not going to be every day. But maybe next month I want to have done something. So I need to do that every day. So at the moment, and in fact, for the past like few intermissions of different projects, I'm being my own, I'm doing like entrepreneurship, my own boss, and that can be really hard. So I've learned to, have a good planner, have a good space to go and work. And now, trying to have people that can relate to the grind and the passion, I think that's quite helpful because a lot of my friends here, they have 9 to 5 jobs and they're on a salary to salary time basis, and I'm in something a bit different. So yeah, trying to find people that can relate is helpful for inspiration and understanding. That's what I'm figuring out at the moment.
And you also, it seems like you have very strong sense of delayed gratification. Would you agree?
Like I'm not. How would you explain delayed
Like you
gratification?
are ready to put so much work just believing in the idea, and you don't have to see the results right away. Like you believe in it so strongly that the result in a month or two or in a year, like this is what you're satisfied with. Like you don't care about like
Yeah.
what's on the way, like just that end goal,
Yeah.
that delayed gratification.
Yeah, absolutely. Before I went to Borneo, like, look, you asked me about as well, like, what was my life-changing experience? Borneo. 3 months, the 3 months up to Borneo was a really not fun time. Like, I was figuring out I mean, it was great because I was also developing my business with like my coaching and the webinars and my online presence. But at the same time, I was also doing a lot of paperwork to be able to go research in Borneo. And just, I spent days and hours doing all this different stuff that was really not fun and super stressful. And, maybe it didn't need to be, or it could be less. But to me, it's just to show that you can't really have all the high moments without putting something in or something not go. I don't know. It's almost like I see it as a yin yang. Like if I'm going to put in all the hard hours now, like it will be beneficial in the future. But the biggest lesson I've learned is just staying present in it all and actually enjoying that. Like enjoying even this more mundane life and being content with it. I don't like to just always every day needs to be like high. I just want to feel like good every day in myself, rather than being like upset if I'm not like at a peak moment in my life, because we can't always be. It's not what happens typically.
Okay. And so, for anyone who might be listening and feeling like they're at the end of their road in their career or dream, what would you say to them?
I would say that you are strong enough to get through this. You are passionate enough to get through it. And everything that is meant for you will be if you keep going, keep thriving, keep setting new goals, have someone to lean on, share your feelings always, don't bottle it up. And even though it's not the moment that you thought you'd ever be in, try to reflect and be grateful everything you did get from it. And you can also create space. You don't need to jump into something new straight away, have something figured out. It's so okay to be in a moment in your life you're like, I don't have things figured out. And that is so exciting because I have so much space to create something even better. And space allows you to create, and being grateful to recreate, because hopefully it'll be even better and you'll come back even stronger. And to believe in yourself. I believe in you. Marta believes in you. And that's what I would say.
Nice. Thank you so much. And so, that feeling of uncertainty, right? Like you don't know what's happening, what's about to come. Like, how would you deal with that?
Yeah. Uncertainty is a hard feeling for sure. And I think people can definitely relate that and connect it to anxiety. And so I think practicing gratitude every day for what you do know you have in that moment will help you to not anticipate the future too much and not need to know what's about to happen. So I know that the hardest days I've had in my life, I've called my mother and she's been like, okay, like let's think about all the things you are really grateful for in your life. And I don't know, when you're going through something not nice, whether it's a rejection or a breakup or anything that you go through, job rejection, anything you go through, it could feel really bad and it could feel really hard to be like, okay, let me be positive right now. Like, what do I love about life? Like, it can be hard, but genuinely, when you're able to focus on the positives that you have in the moment, how can you make the most out of them? And how can you keep doing step by step something towards your future? A level of trust, whether it's in God, whether it's in the universe, whether it's in spirit, whether it's yourself, a level of trust and faith will help through that uncertainty. And hopefully just make sure to take signs and listen to them. So you might not know the futures, but oh, someone's just messaged you about this. Oh, that's a good sign. Like, I don't know what's going to happen, but making sure you're aware of the steps that are happening and you're not just going through life too fast can definitely help with that.
It's a beautiful practice. And you said that for you, it's about every day just feeling good. It's not always going to be high, but what do you do besides the gratitude practice? What else do you do to keep those days, on a
Yeah.
good level?
Yes, I love that. There's a few things. Like, one, I've learned that, well, I'm young and mobile and all the amazing things and healthy. And I've seen this trend about free will, that we have free will. And I think that's really interesting. And through my gap year, I really discovered how much of adventure I love to have. So even though right now I don't know what my next big project is in the next 3 months, I know that I want to focus on new passions and I want to focus on adventure and travel still. And I want to still use my platform to create new things. So literally tomorrow I'm going on a surf trip to Morocco for 6 days because before I came back home and I knew it was going to be a bit mundane, I knew I wanted a little bit of adventure, but not too far away. And yeah, just when you're in tune with what you're craving in the moment and what you're desiring, you can then create a bit better. When I'm away and I know that I want to have more sleep and I want to have better home cooked meals, then I'll be like, okay, I'm going to go home and I'm going to focus on that. And that's going to make me really happy because when you're on the road, you might not get those moments. So always being grateful for each aspect, but remember to take initiative when okay, I need to leave the city or I need to leave this town. I need something new. I like new things. I think it's fun. So just being able to have little moments that inspire you, whether it's taking up a new passion or going to a new place, I think can help. And then, like we mentioned before, daily gratitude for what you have. And here I have a lot of my family and I'm grateful for that. So that keeps me pretty happy every day.
Nice. And what advice would you give to someone who is trying to find their purpose now?
Yeah, I think it's great. I'm honestly going to create something about that in the future. So yeah, keep an eye out. But one advice I would give, and I actually gave this to someone talking to someone in El Salvador. He wasn't sure, and we got into a deep conversation about it. And I asked him because he said oh, maybe I'll become a doctor. And I couldn't. I'll be honest, I couldn't really see him as a doctor. He's like this surfer, really. I just didn't see that. But he said, I don't know. That's what I heard. I heard it's good pay, and he was giving me some reasons that were not exciting to him or myself. And I said, what instead of what do you want to do, profession wise, how do you want to feel? And what do you want to give? What is it? And he thought about it, and you can think about it as two, taking away the aspect of money and fear and limitations and just coming up with a simple feeling of how you want to feel. Is it something exciting? And also with purpose. And it's a lot about how we can give to this world at the end of the day. We're creatures of kindness as well. At the end of the day, it makes us full. Everyone knows that when you do something nice for someone else, it makes you more full. So if we had a world where people also focused on how they can help each other, how they can help nature, whatever your niche is, that can make you feel more fulfilled in your purpose. So he mentioned he's really passionate about mental health and helping school kids through that. And yes, he might be able to create an amazing business around that one day. But for now, that could be a part of his purpose. Alongside it, he could still go to university, do this. But I think people have to remember, like, yes, my purpose here is my career and it's a part of it. But there's also other things on the side. So knowing that your purpose can also go alongside of your job, doesn't necessarily have to be your job. And just think about what you want to give to the world. And that's where I would start.
Awesome. Thank you. I have a few more questions. So I want to basically ask you about the reinvention from being the, veterinarian or wanting to be a veterinarian to working with with wildlife and being a traveler. How did that transition look like?
Mm, yeah, that's a good question. Um, I think the transition really came from how comfortable I felt in like more wild places and with animals. Um, it came from, yeah, just being like good out in the field. And I realized I was very good at like, taking initiative in certain situations and like, yeah, just being out there in the wild. And with veterinary, you got to be working in the clinic also a lot of the time. And I didn't really see myself interacting with owners and being stuck indoors. And so I really was able to see that I was better off in another circumstance. And that helped me to, like, let's say, quote unquote, reinvent myself because I just saw that it was more aligned to who I was. And I also discovered I love discovering and sharing and I think and exploring. And through my gap year, it allowed me, like the experiences I took on, one were work experience and on a professional level, like really good milestones. But on a personal, I loved the feeling of being, it felt freeing from like systems and societies. And, a lot of things I did, like you save up and you pay beforehand back when I was 18, and then when you're out there, there's nothing you're paying for. And I actually loved the feeling of money wasn't my purpose every day was to wake up, eat, do some yoga. I started doing yoga, caring for the animals, connecting with people, caring for the animals again, and going to sleep. And I didn't need to go shopping or buy this. Like, I just love the simpler way of life. And so with this new career path of like wildlife research, I don't know, it offered some lifestyles that were more simple, remote, and can be hard, but I loved it. So that was what I discovered.
So for someone who doesn't have a dream of becoming a wildlife biologist, or someone who is not really into biology and it's not their career, they're in corporate, like, corp life and stuff like that, would you encourage them to take a break and go for a trip to work with wildlife and volunteer?
Yes, absolutely. That's actually my goal this year, is to allow people and show people that no matter what, you can stop what you're doing and go somewhere you've never been and connect with nature like you've never connected before, connect with animals, see things you've never even dreamt of seeing, and sparking that care and love and value. And I want to be able to offer that to people. And that's why this year I'm really focusing on group trips. And if anyone is interested, that is something that I'm there to offer, because at the end of the day, I think wildlife conservation is an amazing, amazing feat. Anyone that is a conservationist know it comes with so many challenges, but the more people that care and are almost ambassadors, and anything I share, and if you carry that on, we're going to make a huge impact in this world. So no matter who you are, where you come from, these trips are open for everyone. And if you're not coming on one of my trips, still, I absolutely embrace people to go and travel and connect in an authentic way, and both with people, wildlife, and nature, because I think everyone needs to experience it.
That's awesome. Well,
Yeah.
thank you so, so much. It was so awesome to learn from you and listen to your life story and your experiences. You know, you have so much more experiences ahead of you. And I can't wait to watch you grow. And I just, want to give you an opportunity to share with the listeners where they can find you and your services. And you said you're coaching. So please share.
Rachel, thank you so much for having me today and asking such deep and meaningful questions that will be able to help anyone out there, hopefully. So my Instagram handle is at Garden of Ganya. That's where I'm posting a lot of more behind the scenes and travel stuff and also advice and tips. And on that, you'll have my link in my bio, which has access to everything I offer outside of Instagram, which is wildlife webinars, coaching, resources, different group trips, different volunteer opportunities, anything like that can be found in the link. And this year, I'll also be relaunching my YouTube, which is also at Garden of Ganya. In there, you can find more like long-form content, stories, and in-depth experiences of living in Borneo and traveling. And those are the two main platforms you can find me. I'm also on TikTok, Ganyah Gold. And I would say those three are great to contact me.
Awesome. So thank you so much.